My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
Hi, this is Hallie Warner, and today's leadership quote is from Naval Ravikant. I want to be that guy who is successful, peaceful, happy, enjoying life, blissful, meditative, spiritual, successful, and as healthy as I can be, and famous and rich, and not give a damn about any of it. If I lose it all tomorrow, I still want to be happy. That's it. That's where I want to be. I'll just make that decision because somebody has to be that person. It might as well be me.
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
With so much on your plate, wouldn't it be nice if ordering food for the office were easy and reliable? My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. With Easy Cater's network of over 100,000 restaurants nationwide, you'll have a huge variety of options near you for any group size, dietary need, or budget. Your food arrives on time as ordered, all supported 24/7 by Easy Cater's team of experts. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more. Hey friends, welcome to the Leader Assistant Podcast. It's episode 214. You can check out the show notes for all of the links and info on today's episode, as well as ways to connect further and other resources and notes from my sponsor at leaderassistant.com/214, leaderassistant.com/214. And today I'm excited because I have a special guest who I actually interviewed a long time ago on the podcast. It's pretty crazy. It's been, 4 years of podcast episodes, and she was in episode 17. And so, Hallie Warner, welcome back to the Leader Assistant Podcast.
Thank you so much. I remember when your podcast first launched, I was so excited because it was such a much needed voice in the executive assistant and assistant community. So thank you for having me back.
Yeah. And it's, I'm still looking back. I'm like, man, I can't believe I was thinking back to when we first chatted for that episode 4 years ago. And, episode 17, I was like feeling good. Like, all right, I got 17 episodes. I'm doing good. And now I'm like 214. Wait a minute. This is crazy.
Crazy. Yeah. You've done a lot of work.
So, yeah, well, glad to have you back. For those that missed the first conversation, you can check out episode 17, where Hallie and I talk on the podcast at leaderassistant.com/17, leaderassistant.com/17 to hear the first version. But this is the new and improved interview with Hallie. And so, Hallie, why don't you give us a brief overview of where you live and what you like to do in your free time, and then we can get into your professional journey as well. And then we'll talk about a little bit of similar topics and how they've changed over the years since we last chatted, but then also cover some different topics as well.
Cool. Yeah, so I am in Vermont, and I've lived here for quite some time now. I can't believe it, actually. In my free time, I probably not much different than 4 years ago. I still love reading. I try to get outside as much as possible when it is not snowing, because I'm not a huge fan of the winter. And, I know this sounds, I love my work. I really do. And it's not that I work all of the time, but I really enjoy creating content, reading content, articles, blogs, books, of course, Audible. So I do spend a lot of time doing that. And of course, with my 2 dogs as well. And my husband. Can't forget about him.
Last but not least, right?
Yes.
So I have to ask you then, because you mentioned content and, producing content, chat GPT is kind of all the rage right now, and this automation and content curation and creation with this AI tool. How have you used it, or how have you researched it, or how has it changed? And maybe even, relative to our last conversation in July of 2019, how has the world of blogging and reading and writing and all that stuff changed for you?
Yeah. So when I first kind of started exploring chatGPT, I was scared of it at first. And I was like, well, I guess I don't have a job anymore. That's always my first thought, when there's new technology or, we make a great hire, even if I made the hire myself, I'm like, well, I guess I don't need to work anymore. Which is never the case, right? It always just means it's the opportunity for you to grow, or for you to level up your skill set, or for you to take on new or different responsibilities. So once I really started diving into ChatGPT, I tested it out with lots of different questions. I was really just doing it more from a research perspective to see the quality that was coming back. And what I have found, and some of our team members who are also write a lot and produce a lot of content, whether it's email campaigns, copywriting, blogs, things like that. They find that it's great for if you are having writer's block, or if you're just trying to, you're starting to brainstorm a new idea and want to get some either feedback or just get some new ideas going. And then, of course, taking that and weaving in your own context. How does that relate to your specific situation, your specific industry? Making sure that and while ChatGPT can do this to a certain degree, from my experience, you do still need to add in your voice a little bit, different punctuation to make sure that it really hits your brand. That may continue to evolve. But as of right now, I'm certainly using it at least from like that starting point. Like, okay, I think I really want to write a blog, or I want to do a podcast about this. Let's see what it comes back with. Maybe there was something I'm missing that I want to make sure I include.
Interesting. That's great.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something you've tried out and researched and plan on using going forward. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I will. I don't know. It's usually if I'm really stuck, I'll kind of jump in. It might not be my first instinct yet right now is not to go there. But that may change. That may change as I get more and more used to using it and going there.
Nice. Well, we've got lots to chat about, but just to give kind of a high level refresher of your career. So you currently are chief of staff to the founder and CEO of Adam Hergenrother Companies. And you also co-authored the amazing book, The Founder and the Force Multiplier, How Entrepreneurs and Executive Assistants Can Achieve More Together. And I believe you just released the second edition to that book. Is that right?
Yes, we did.
Awesome. And you guys have an audiobook and all that. So it's always fun looking at the rankings and seeing my book and your book head to head battling for top spots. So it's always fun.
That's right.
But yeah, you originally, just give us the short version, because I think we got into this more in depth last time we chatted, but you originally were Adam's assistant, right? And then you worked your way up to chief of staff and hired an assistant.
Yep, that's right. I was, it was 12 and a half years ago. I started as a marketing assistant, very quickly moved into, within a few months, moved into his position as his executive assistant when he only had 2 businesses at the time. And then over 12 years, I have done pretty much everything in between PA, EA, operations manager, office manager, all the things that a serial multi-passionate entrepreneur does. I was that right-hand partner. And yes, I did end up moving into the chief of staff role more formally. I was doing it informally for a couple of years, but more formally, I honestly, the timeline is so fuzzy to me, maybe 7 years ago, when we hired an executive assistant, and I was really able to leverage some of those responsibilities to a great EA so that I could work with Adam on other projects, starting new companies, working more closely with our leadership team. And of course, where Adam and my passion is really in coaching, training, leading, and creating content that really drives our brand and messaging that, of course, helps all of our companies.
Right. Yeah. And tell us about the Founder and Force Multiplier brand, and how did that come about, and how has it changed over the last 4 years?
Yeah. So, it started as we were just doing a blog, which was great. I mean, I loved doing that. And then that moved into a book in 2019. And that was fantastic. We started dabbling in coaching a little bit here and there over that couple of years, I think. And then at the end of last year, it was really maybe in 2022 sometime, we were like, well, I think there's more to it. Let's formalize this into an actual company. It's not just a book, it's more than that. So over the course of 2022, we worked on creating our community. We launched additional cohorts. So we hosted several small group coaching cohorts last year. We have plans to write another book. We're working on another book right now. Well, two other books right now. One for the Founder and Force Multiplier brand, one for our other company. And it just kind of went from this blog to this actual, living and breathing company where we can serve a lot more executive assistants and founders and entrepreneurs, because the partnership is really our passion, and getting the leader and their right-hand partner to be having the right conversations, working together effectively and strategically, and really leading together, because that's what I think that partnership is. I mean, I couldn't do my job without Adam. I'd like to think he couldn't do his job without me. So that's where we like to spend time and help those two individuals create a really strong partnership.
Awesome. And it's been so fun to watch over the last 4 years, watch the brand grow and the book, gain popularity and all that. It's just been fun to see, and because you guys have produced a lot of great content that sometimes I look at it and I'm like, oh man, that's good. I wish I would have come up with that. So you guys are
as do I with what you do, right? I think that's the beauty of having all the different voices and perspectives out there, though, because we all have our own experiences. And while we have maybe done similar roles over the years, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, you've worked more in tech, I believe, and maybe nonprofits as well. Yep. Yeah. And so those are two areas that aren't necessarily my forte. So just having all these different perspectives and industry knowledge, I think, is just so beneficial to the community as a whole. Yeah,
that's great. Well, can you give us a little sneak peek to the Founder and Force Multiplier book that you're currently working on, or is it top secret?
Well, we're toying with a couple of different ideas, but I'm like, which one should I share? We have outlines for a couple of different ones. The book we're working on right now is called The 200% Life, and that'll be out a little bit later this year. That one is more for the Adam Hergenrother company's brand. It really is where we blend our business and spirituality conversations, which are a huge part of all of our businesses. It is about personal growth, and business is nothing but a conduit for personal growth. So that's one book that we're working on. And then we have a couple of other books in the Founder and Force Multiplier, I call it the series, that we're working on. One will be a little bit more focused on the chief of staff role. Okay. And then another one we're working on is a bit more about the partnership and navigating change and making decisions together.
Love it. Can't wait.
Me too.
Excited for you guys.
A lot of writing to do.
I was going to say,
you tap into ChatGPT a little bit more.
Yeah, I've actually thought about maybe I'll just write a book that's all ChatGPT and just call it something like the ChatGPT assistant, and then just every chapter is written by AI. Anyways, we'll see. So you mentioned personal growth and how it relates to career success, and you mentioned how you all are passionate about how business is basically a conduit for personal growth. So talk to us a little bit about your experience and how you've grown to value the personal growth side in addition to career and how that relates.
Yeah. So of the beginning of my career, I mean, I didn't think about anything but work and being the best EA and what did that even mean? And, it was a little bit more ego driven. And that led to being a workaholic, whether I wanted to be or not, but that's what happened. And it was it wasn't ego that I needed to be on stage or get rewards. It was ego in the terms of I needed to prove to myself and maybe subconsciously to others that I was worthy of the position I had or worthy of being in the same rooms because I was in some great rooms with amazing leaders. So there's a little bit of imposter syndrome going on. There's definitely ego happening. There's issues of self-worth and all of that going on, especially in the beginning of my career. And so a lot of the work that I've done over the past, I would say probably 5 to 8 years specifically, has been around, whether you call it personal growth, spirituality, but really working on learning how to let go of expectations, surrender, and let go is probably the best way to say it, but start learning to separate myself from the identity that I had created and on the outside and work more on the inside. And as long as you're doing that inner work where you're working on your self-worth and you're working on your own values, and you're doing that inner work, it doesn't really matter what happens on the outside because you're already whole and complete inside. And then the beauty of all of that is when you focus first on yourself, the external stuff becomes so much easier and more effortless and more in alignment. And that to me is where most of my growth came, as I just started feeling so much more in alignment with who I really was. And oftentimes I think we talk about discovering who we want to be, but to me, it's actually really uncovering and peeling back all of these layers of identity. Really, I'm a workaholic. I'm a chief of staff. I'm a parent. I'm a this. I'm a that. And it's actually like really peeling back all of those layers and not discovering this new version of yourself, but rather uncovering who you already are. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
No, I mean, it's like I talk about it a lot where it's like if you attach your worth to your work, you're not going to lead like you could lead. You're going to burn out. You're going to be held back from your potential. And so I think that's well said. Yeah. So what about being a strategic business partner? What in this, is also related to leading yourself and personal growth and all, but what is a strategic business partner? What's your kind of, 30-second definition of a strategic business partner? And then how do we become a stronger strategic business partner for our executives?
Yeah, I'm going to try to do it in 30 seconds or less. The strategic business partner, I don't know how to explain it other than it is two people who have truly decided to be in partnership together to work on one job, whatever it is, if it's the CFO, it's a CEO, two people who have decided to enter into a partnership to do one job, both rooted in their strengths to achieve the same mission, vision, and goal. And that does look different across, it comes in the form of a chief of staff. Sometimes it's a personal assistant. Sometimes it's an EA. Sometimes it's a program manager. The title might look a little different, but to me, it's that, whether you want to call it strategic partner, we like to call it force multiplier. It's when those two people come together and really multiply the effort and effects of whatever they're doing.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, I can't remember if I asked you this before, but just kind of an aside note, who came up with the founder and force multiplier name or brand? Like, did you come up with that name? Did Adam come up with it? Was it just kind of happen?
It was a while ago, but I think I did. I was reading, I don't remember what I was reading. I consume so much content, but I was reading an article and I heard the term, and they were referring to some sort of like military entry maneuver. Because I believe force multiplier is originally a military term. This was in the days when all I was reading was books about Navy SEALs and Army Rangers and all, and all of their leadership books were coming out. And so I was just like, you know what, that definition is actually what EAs and chiefs of staff are doing with and for their executives. So plus I love alliteration. So it just happened to work.
Awesome. That's great. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about finding the right executive/assistant match and why that matters. You found a pretty good match and have excelled and leveled up, if you will, in that organization. How can we find the right match, and why is it so crucial for assistants to really match with the right executive?
The simple answer for why it's crucial is for like life and career satisfaction. I mean, we do spend a lot of our time working, and if you do not have an executive that you, one, respect, trust, are in alignment with their mission and vision, can you do your job? Absolutely. Is it going to be fulfilling? And is it going to fulfill you? Is it going to make you want to get out of bed every morning and really like be a part of something? Maybe not. And not everybody is blessed to have that, but I think that everyone can if they really want to, because on the other side, I know so many, and I'm sure you do too, so many executives who also want that in an executive assistant, but they're not quite sure how to find that either. So part of the work that we do is making sure that we continue to share that there are EAs out there who really want to be an integral part of the business and be involved and in line with everything that the executive is doing. And that we also want to show that there's executives who get it, who are really intelligent, great leaders who understand the value of EAs. So to me, that's why it's important, is just to enjoy your life more in the most basic way.
So you addressed why it matters, but maybe practically how do we find the match? Or maybe are there questions or exercises that you can go through as you're interviewing or as you're exploring different executives to work with, maybe tips on how we can find that match.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's not always possible, but I would definitely talk to any former employees who have worked there. I know there's obviously some things on Glassdoor. Always, you could take some of that and stuff with a grain of salt, perhaps, depending on who might be leaving those comments and reviews. But if you can talk to former employees, particularly former EAs, I think that's huge. Or current employees, that can be hit or miss as well. But it's a good place to start. You're just gathering intel, right? I think if you're the executive that you're interviewing with, or the HR department is willing to do behavior assessments and have a conversation around whether or not you're the behavioral match, not just for the position, but for to be complementary to the executive. I hope most HR departments or leaders are doing behavior assessments and doing some sort of personality or behavior match. They don't always. You can certainly ask. And then I also would make sure that you are understanding what their goals are for the year and or for the company as a whole, and making sure that you can see your success, yourself being successful by helping them achieve those goals. Because that's not always the case either. If they're thinking too small and you've got these big goals, well, that's a mismatch right there. And there's one other thing I was going to mention. Of course, I forgot it. I mean, I think it's a tricky thing trying to find that right match. But the biggest thing to me is not to give up. And if you are in that situation where when it is not the right fit, there's things that you can do to try to work on that relationship. But at a certain point, there's nothing wrong with moving on to somebody who is a better match, because that you have the skills, you have the drive, you know where you want you to take your career. And if you can't do that with a particular executive, that's okay. And moving, there's no problem in my mind of moving on, as long as, there's good reasons behind it.
Yeah. When did you know that Adam was an executive, a good match, if you will?
Yeah, it was his really, it was like his relentless drive to be successful. I mean, I was 25 when I first started working with him, so that was, I was relentlessly driven as well to be successful. So that was a big one. He had big goals, a big vision, and he made things happen. He wasn't going to just sit around and talk about it. We were making things happen constantly. We were taking risks, trying new things, and he was always transparent in his communication as well as decisive. And I had worked with leaders before who were, the transparency was maybe there a little bit, but certainly not decisive. And that was a big red flag to me. I need somebody who knows what they want, is going to go after it. And so probably within about 6 months or so, I was like, okay, I think we're doing some cool things here, and let's see how far we can take it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like decisiveness as well.
Yes.
Good trait. So, it's been 4 years since we published our last interview, basically roughly 4 years. What's maybe one or two things that have changed or morphed in the assistant world that you've seen?
Yeah, I would say maybe there's two. The big ones that I'm seeing right now, and I'd love your perspective on this as well, is I'm getting a lot more questions about not necessarily challenges, but just people wanting to know how to make the relationship work between an EA and their chief of staff. So that, because of the chief of staff role becoming so much more prominent across all sectors, that's something I'm seeing and hearing and having a lot of discussions with EAs and chiefs of staff around how do those two partners work really well together, in addition to having that third person, their executive, in the mix. Now we have this kind of trifecta, as I call it, of this C-suite trifecta. So how do you get all three of these partners to be working cohesively and effectively together? And I don't think that was necessarily happening quite as much 4 years ago, or people were not necessarily as vocal about it. And then the other thing that I'm always encouraged to see is that the role of executive assistant continues to gain more, at least I believe it is, and I want to continue to see this, that it is gaining more visibility, more inclusion, more respect, and people are starting to see how much impact these roles can have on companies, and not just from the EA community, but from other leadership coaches and from other C-suite leaders. They're really starting to see and understand the impact that a great strategic partner can have on their business. I love the term executive business partner. I've seen that a lot more over the past 4 years. So those are just kind of two interesting trends that I've been noticing.
Yeah, I think I've been seeing similar trends as well. And I think it's exciting that there are more. Another thing would be like even just more resources out there for assistants is nice.
Yes.
So that's great. Well,
yeah.
Hallie, what's kind of your parting thoughts for listeners for our conversation today? I appreciate you being on the show again. And what's maybe one thing you want to leave the assistants of the world with as we wrap it up?
Oh, that's a big one. Well, I'm going to leave you with another quote, because this is something that I've been really maybe contemplating a lot lately. And it's a quote from Glennon Doyle, who wrote Untamed. And her question is, what is the truest, most beautiful story about your life you can imagine? And I think that if we all took a bit more time to really think about that question and find inside what that answer was, it would be a very interesting and beautiful world if we were all living that truest, most beautiful story about our lives.
Wow, that's really good. Well, I put you on the spot and you delivered, so I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Where's the best place for people to reach out?
LinkedIn is always great, but really if you just go to founderenforcemultiplier.com, you can find us there. All of our resources are there, and you can always just shoot me an email or come hang out with us in our community.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'll put all those links in the show notes, leaderassistant.com/214. And people can reach out and find out more about the great work that you all are doing for the assistant community and the chief of staff community and the executive community. And appreciate it. It's been fun chatting with you again. And maybe next time we won't have 4 years in between it, but we'll see.
Thank you.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com